Hello and welcome to Race Streamer. In this video I'm going to review a couple of driver scholarships that I competed to win last year, one of which is run by Team HARD, which took place in January, actually earlier this year, and the other one, which was the final stage of the Want2Race Genetic Scholarship competition, which was run in October last year. So I'm going to talk about basically what happened on my days, the differences between the two scholarships, and just a few thoughts for how you can get the most out of any scholarship program, either from a learning experience standpoint, or if you're really going out there to properly try and win the scholarship, if you feel like you have all the ingredients that the teams are looking for. So the first thing to be said about both of these scholarships that I entered was that they are basically looking for the same thing from anyone that enters. They're looking for you to be a combination of a really decent driver with strong, quick, consistent pace, to also show that you're capable of handling pressure, to be able to integrate within the team and be personable, to look like you're media friendly, potentially have financial backing on you and potential sponsorship partners to bring with you. So there's a big combination of things that they're looking for. In terms of the criteria to be able to enter the two scholarships, Want2Race primarily only look for complete novice drivers. If you've done track days and that before, that's fine, but you are not allowed to enter the competition if you already have a race license. Whereas with the Team HARD scholarship, they were okay if you were an inexperienced racer who does have a license, but they're still looking for people on the novice side of racing things. Which brings me on to the fact that both scholarships involve you having track sessions with tuition from current decent race drivers such as David Pittard, Lewis Brown, Max Coates, Mike Epps. So you got some decent names that are well known within national motorsport circles there. And while you're out on circuit with the instructors, what they're looking to do is see if they can give you feedback to try and improve your driving on the go. So they'll be assessing your ability based on where you start, but also how far you progress and how good you are at taking on feedback and how you action it. Now, the scholarships also have an element of media tuition to them. So when it came to the Want2Race scholarship, by the time that you got to the final stages, Michael Crease was giving a talk on basically how he secured his way into motorsport financially and how he used his knowledge of working the media and his presence as he called himself a brand, the Creasy brand, to make his way through motorsport up the ranks and into British touring cars. But also, from the Team HARD scholarship, there was a talk on working social media, specifically from Jack Goff. So this is all useful stuff if you are looking to move up the motorsport ladder and ultimately aim for something as high as national or even international competition. And also, when you get to the final stages of both competitions, then each driver has an interview with team personnel or a team member, so that way they can fill you out for just your attitude about the whole thing, basically. And then they can ask you various questions on things that are important to them that they won't have already found out from the instructors' feedback in the cars. Things like what kind of financial backing or potential for sponsorship that you have, and just general things like how you get on in an interview, how talkative you are as a person. Just get a feel for your character, basically. Or the same sort of stuff that anyone looks for in a regular job interview. I wouldn't actually know, because I've never had a job interview. The beauty of being self-employed and going straight from paperboy to shop assistant when I was younger working at the co-op. Anyway, more to the point, the thing that I can imagine every team who is running a scholarship is looking for ultimately is for the right combination for them of someone who is going to pull results on track but provide the financial backing and that they can potentially see a future with past that one season for which the prize is awarded. So down to the nitty gritty of the Want2Race scholarship. Now, what made this different to the Team HARD scholarship was, well, the fact that the prize is completely different for a start. So the prize for winning the Want2Race scholarship was a full season in the GRDC, which is the Ginetta Racing Drivers Championship, driving the car that you're seeing on screen, which is a Ginetta G40 in its GRDC spec, which makes it different to other championships that you might see the same car running in, because this is running on road tyres. It is the lowest power form of the car, and it's got a manual box, whereas you might see the Ginetta Juniors running a sequential or the GT5s on slicks. Yeah, this is the barest version of the car going. And it has to be said, it's a massive challenge driving this car. Personally, I didn't get on with it very well. Now, I'm not saying that the car was bad, but I couldn't handle it, basically. It's got a quave differential, which I found really aggressive if you didn't rev match spot on, especially going from third to second. So, tricky little car to drive, even though it's not the quickest thing in the world, but it feels pretty nippy. It's good fun, don't get me wrong. There's big differences in the setup between various cars that Want2Race were running as well. So some definitely felt that they were more set up for an understeer setup, or others were a lot more aggressive at the rear, perhaps stiffer suspension as well, so you were more jumpy over certain bumps. So it was a decent challenge within the scholarship to try and show that you can adapt to these different setups, although I guess ultimately every driver will have their preference once they can get down to trying to set the car up for them. Now, the ultimate pace round Blyton Park in one of these cars, I've seen some laps where it's around 1 minute 15.5s in similar conditions to what you're seeing at the moment. So you can see how relatively far off I am from that at the moment. I wasn't going slow, so I got through to the finals of the competition. Onto the final day where there was 24 of us left. I wasn't deemed good enough to get through to the final 12, but this was on pace that was 3 seconds down. So it goes to show, I guess, that there was quite a big spread of ability between people they had turning up to the competition. So the scholarship was split into 3 rounds plus a grand final, which all took place on separate days. For stage 1, you could either complete it through karting, which was the cheapest route. That's what I did at Buckwell Park back in March. Or you could hire out this car at a particular UK circuit. I think Donington was the most used because that's where Want2Race are based now. And then stage 2 took place at Blyton Park, similar to what you're watching here. That was in August. And then stage 3 was identical, took place at Blyton Park again. This is what you're watching at the moment. That was in October, with the following day, if you were invited back for the grand final, same again, Blyton Park, just on a different track layout. And the total cost for entering the competition for me was approximately 900 quid. That's money that you can spend to get more track time if you've got your own car that you can take on track days. But in terms of quality over quantity, I would say that the usefulness of getting tuition in a given race car, especially from the guys that they get in for these scholarships to provide tuition, is so worth it. I got a lot of useful tips from both the scholarships, especially from David Pittard on this one to do with braking and trail braking it was. And yeah, it all gets over and done with relatively quickly because there isn't much track time. There's probably about an hour in total across everything that you do in the Want2Race programme through stage 2, stage 3 and the grand final anyways. So I'm glad that I took part in the competition. It wasn't the sort of thing that I was going to enter again. It was a one-shot thing for me because of the financial commitment required to see your way through to the end of the competition for the entry fees. But it's something that helps me realise where a few weaknesses in my driving was. I was a bit erratic on the grand final day, which is why I didn't get through to the final 12. I had a bit of a moment under braking where I nearly pitched it into a concrete wall, for example. Even though in my head it was fine, I sure gave Lewis Brown a bit of a fright, bless him. And I think that was probably enough for them to think, yeah, we're not going to put him through to the final 12, which is fair enough. So crossing over to the Team HARD scholarship, which took place in January, which was held over 2 rounds, for which they were at Blyton Park for a week at the end of January, and then the finalists of the competition were invited to Brands Hatch about a month later to drive these VW Golf Cup cars a bit more, and then the final finalists were to then drive the Ginetta G55 Super Cup. So the prize for winning the scholarship was full season, paid with tests, blah blah blah, pretty much all in entry to the GT Cup Championship, racing Team HARD's Ginetta G55 Super Cup. But the scholarship itself was run in their VW Golf Cup cars, which I find a little bit odd because handling dynamics of a front-wheel drive car so different to a rear-wheel drive car that's running downforce as well. However, that was the point for me entering this scholarship because it gave me a chance for the first time to experience running in a race-prepped car that was on full slick tyres, or at least we ran full slick tyres on the second session, which is what I've got footage of here. It was really cold at the start of the day, so even though it was basically dry on circuit, we had to put wets on the rear at the beginning of the day because we just weren't getting any temperature in the rear tyres at all. And as you'll see in a sec, you'll be able to see that I've really struggled to make my way around the first few corners cleanly here. Sorry the footage hasn't turned out so well, by the way. I was just a bit of a pleb and set the exposure wrong, but because my mind was more on the driving than the filming, I didn't notice until later, I'm afraid. So for those of you who haven't driven a car on slick tyres before, let me tell you that once there was temperature in these tyres, oh my god, it's fast, man! Like, this is easily the quickest car I've ever driven, just for sheer grip through the corners. You can't describe it as feeling like it was on rails, because that would imply you've got downforce, but it just felt like you could lean on the tyres so hard, and I did get it to a point through this driving that I was properly on the limit of grip, just understeering through corners and on corner exit, because these cars have got a lot of power as well. I think they're running about 300 brake. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong there. So they're proper rockets, these cars. Now, in terms of the cost to enter the Team HARD scholarship, which is staying the same for the 2021 scholarship, it's £500 up front to enter, and that's it. So you're paying your entry for the first stage of the scholarship, and if they deem you good enough on combined fronts of driving, of the interview stage, and of a third part being fitness, which is unique to the Team HARD scholarship in what I'm comparing anyways, then they invite you back for the final at Brands Hatch, which sadly I wasn't invited back for. I drove really well on this day, if I can say that objectively, because I've got a lap of Mike Epps driving, and then by the end of my session I went quicker than him, which is completely mental to say that out loud, but I promise that's what happened. I wish I could actually show you footage to so you could see how it unfolded, but yeah, it goes to show that just being able to drive well and set one quick lap in a sea of laps that are building up is definitely not good enough for what they're looking for. And the calibre of drivers that turned up for the Team HARD scholarship, I feel personally, was a lot higher than what Want2Race attracted to their scholarship. I mean, to be honest, the prize from the Team HARD scholarship is so much more serious in terms of just the high financial commitment that they're putting in, the backing that they have from RCIB, amongst other things. So the actual amount of track time that you get on this day, again, it's pretty small. I think it was approximately 20 minutes, 25 minutes in total on this day, but that was enough to leave an impression on me through this. Can you tell I'm a fan of driving a car on slick tyres? Oh, I'd love to get back in one someday. I get the feeling that for me personally, I completely bombed in this competition because of the interview. So I've never had like a job interview with anyone in my life, as I said earlier, and there were a lot of questions that were asked by a couple of guys that work for Team HARD, where they were asking me various questions to do with what kind of racing I'm interested in, what I currently do, what I do outside of racing work-wise, and then it came to questions such as what I know about Team HARD actually, which was nothing, if I'm being completely honest, because I didn't go here for the interview part. I didn't realistically think I had a chance of winning this competition. I went here for the experience of driving the car and to kind of get a feel for what they would be looking for from someone who would win the scholarship. And the thing that impressed on me was that they were really keen to know who you were as a person, especially. Like, they wanted to know if you were a driven individual, if you were ambitious and had a direction with where you wanted to go in motorsports, and if that would be something that Team HARD could potentially support you through in years to come, rather than just thinking short term in terms of how good you would be in that one season of GT Cup in their Ginetta. So moving away from that onto the fitness side of things, where they had Sam Callahan in running various drills with everyone that was there. Their criteria for that was they just wanted to see you pushing as hard as you could. That was the main thing, but secondly, they did actually want to see you with a certain level of fitness about you. So I wouldn't describe you as having to be an absolute gym freak, essentially, but some of the things that they tested us on, they got us to do a 600 rowing sprint, fastest time got the highest marks kind of thing, and then there were various other exercises to do with core strength and mobility, so things like balancing in a sort of L-sit position on a gym ball while holding out a 15 kilo squat rack weight in front of you while you were having to turn that round like it would be operating a steering wheel. Little bit of a moment there on camera, you could see I was pushing. But anyway, getting back to the fitness side of things, yeah, another test they had, it would just be holding a plank position for a minute, and there were some crunches to do, and there were reaction tests, like Sam would drop a ball, you'd have to go chase it from a certain distance, and all of that was put down in marks, and there were marks for the driving, and I'm sure they were probably marking on the interview side of things as well, so it gave them an overall balanced picture of who the best all-rounder was, but it would also give them indicators for who was stronger in what areas, basically. So I'm going to finish up by talking about the differences between who entered each competition generally and who won. Now, the biggest difference was with Want2Race, it certainly attracted more novices that perhaps hadn't thought about trying to go racing before, whereas Team HARD was certainly looking to attract those that already had some experience of motorsport and were looking to take things very seriously immediately and look to build a future with the team for sure. And that meant that you got more entries to the Want2Race competition overall, hence it was run over many, many days across the year, whereas the Team HARD scholarship was run across 5 days at Blyton Park and then 1 day at Brands Hatch for the second round. And the winner of the Want2Race competition went on to race in the GRDC, which was combined with the G40 Cup in 2020. Obviously things got moved around a bit because of COVID. And they did not win the championship, and frankly they didn't come close. I've seen the lap time differences between the winner of the competition and the front runners of the championship, for which a guy called Stephen Docker, who I used to race with in Club 100, was racing in GRDC this year. And the lap time difference generally between the winner of Want2Race last year and the front runners in the championship was somewhere between a second to a second and a half per lap, other than at Brands Hatch GP, which I was there to see, where, to be fair, he did get on a lot better and was much more competitive. So it really goes to show that you do not need to be the best out on track on every occasion to end up being the winner of this scholarship, because it's more of a package thing that they're looking for. Now, with the winner of the Team HARD scholarship, plans completely changed, and the guy who won it, called Ollie Brown, went on to race the VW Cup car that I was in here in this footage in 1 or 2 races at Alton Park in the wet, where he did magnificently, and then immediately got bumped up to the British Touring Car Championship, which he competed for most of the season with Team HARD until he suffered a heavy crash and then wasn't able to come back into the championship for financial reasons, sadly. So that rounds off the video. I hope you found that useful, and I'm going to leave it with the feedback that Mike Epps gave to me at the end of the session. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe. I'll see you again soon.
How hard do you hold the wheel? So when you're holding the wheel, are you pushing against it? Are you pulling it? Are you?
So I'm a bit far back, so I think maybe I'm pulling on it a little bit as it goes. Well, ideally, I'd rather be about here.
Because for me, it feels like you're a bit tight on the steering. So we're coming through the corner. In the middle of the corner, I can feel the car rotating a bit, and I don't quite see the reduction in steering lock that goes with that. It means we're just holding it a little bit. And that's why we had those slides around the right. Simply because we would turn and then the car would rotate, but because we're holding it quite tight, we wouldn't feel it through the wheel quick enough. So then we have a bigger slide than maybe we needed to. And that's why you had a couple of those. You controlled them fine after that, which is all good, especially into that right. But what I find is having a really soft palm on the outside of each corner. So turning right, your left palm, you push it up as gently as possible. So as soon as you feel the wheel push back against you, you know the car's rotating. You won't actually feel it through your arse until your arse is out. But you will feel it through the wheel straight away. So that's the biggest key point. That's my tip for you if you get to drive at the next round, if you like, of the
Well,
scholarship.
frankly, it's just a good tip outright.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
exactly.
like through karting, you get used to pressing on the wheel.
Yeah, karting
in a
you hold
sense,
on
so-
to the fucker, yeah, because
Yeah.
it's got casted steering and a solid rear axle.
Yeah.
Whereas in these, yeah, in any race car, you want it as soft as possible. That's why F1 cars have power steering, so you can be soft at the wheel and feel it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's generally that. And with the brakes, a little bit more prompt on the initial brake is all I wanted. So a bit more. So you get a bit more of it done earlier on, so you got more room for adjustment later on in the brake
That
phase,
makes
so you
sense,
don't go in too quick.
Yeah.
That's generally just a safety thing, really.
Yeah.
But it does allow you to push further. So
Yeah.
those two tips will definitely help you. But look, no, I actually thought that was really good. You're very quick.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, and you haven't got a huge amount of experience behind you, so
No.
you know, I'm quite impressed with that. So yeah, take those two things with you.
Oh, will
today.
do. Thank you.
And.